Just give me a moment. Okay. All right. That works. All right. So, but before we go on to what we have for today on the digestive, anyone who was in the last class remind us what we talked about in our previous class last week? Anyone? Can anyone give us a trial? What we talked about in our last class last week? Okay, can everybody hear me? If you can hear me, send an emoji because I'm not getting a response. If you can hear me, send an emoji. Okay, Christine can hear me. Okay. Obawumi and Lucas, are you there? Thank you, Christine. Obawumi and Lucas, are you there? Okay, I guess Obawumi and Lucas. Okay, Lucas, you're there. Okay, Obawumi, you're there. Thank you for the emoji. Thank you for the response. So Obawumi and Lucas, you were present in the last class. So can you remind us what we talked about in our last class and give it a trial? Can I give it a trial? All right, then let me go. Last week we talked about, oh, thank you, Lucas. Last week we talked about evolution. We talked about evolution last week. We talked about the meaning of evolution, the theories of evolution. For example, the theory of use and disuse, which was proposed by Jean Lamarck. We talked about the theory of natural selection that was proposed by a scientist called Charles Darwin. We talked about the evidences of evolution, and we talked about even the applications of evolution. So out of all of the things we talked about, who wants to take us through one or two out of it? About me and Lucas, can you give it a trial?
What you said?
Oh, okay. I said Lucas reminded us what we talked about in our last class. Lucas said we talked about evolution, in which is correct. We talked about evolution. And in our last class, I said we talked about the meaning of evolution, the theories of evolution. We talked about the application of evolution and even the evidences of evolution. So I'm asking you, which one of it do you want to take us through? Lucas and Obawumi, which one do you want to take us through? Okay, Obawumi has sent a thinking emoji. She's thinking. You can give it a try. You don't have to be 100% correct. That's the thing about learning. You learn, you unlearn, you relearn, and you keep learning. Learning is a continuous process. So I don't expect you to give me 100% right now. Okay? So whatever rough work you can do, it goes a long way. It shows your mind is in class. It shows you're following. It shows you're reading up. You're doing your personal reading, and you're doing the collective sessions that we're talking about. If you right here now in class, so can you give it a try? Obawumi and Lucas. Which one of you is going to build the cards? Okay, Obawumi, Lucas has answered the question. So Obawumi, can you give it a try?
What I mean is that it's mutation.
Okay,
So
yes, we
what
talked
I mean,
about mutation too.
so what I meant last time is something a change that occurs in organisms. So as you said it can be neutral, it can be beneficial, and usually pass from one generation to generation. Example like the eye, the color of the parents, it can be transferred from one generation to generation.
Thank you, Obawumi. In our last class, we did also talk about mutation. Mutation is something that can cause a change in evolutionary trend, in evolutionary flow. For example, some genes combine together and they give rise to an individual that has albinism, or an individual in which their race normally has black to brown pupil, and they're having a green one or a bluish one. That is an example of mutation. In our last class, I displayed the image of an alligator, an albino alligator, a white alligator. That is not the normal color of alligator. Alligators never come in white. They never come in white. However, that alligator came in white. So that is an example of a mutation. A mutation can be transferred from one generation to another, because the mutation that has occurred has caused a change in the gene. It has caused a change in the combination in the gene, and will lead to it being transferred from one generation to another. However, it could be dominant or it could be recessive. When it's dominant, it means it is occurring from one generation to another without skipping. When it's recessive, it could go like two generations, nobody there has albinism, and in the third or the fourth generation, you find an albino. So that's how it works. So thank you, Abaomi, for reminding us about mutation. All right. So let's go to what we have for today. Today, like I said earlier, I said we'll be talking about the digestive system. We'll be talking about digestive system in human beings, and digestive system in animals. So this class is being recorded. So in case you don't grab everything that I've said in class, you can always go to your dashboard. You'll find a video upload of today's session. So when we talk about the digestive system, we can't talk about the digestive system without talking about digestion. When we talk about digestion, what do we mean by digestion? Digestion is the process by which the food that we have ingested is converted into substance that can be utilized by the body. Now, when you ingest food as a human being, as an animal, why are you ingesting food? You are ingesting food with the aim of getting nutrients. When you're hungry, for example, what do? You get up, you get something to eat to fill up your stomach. Why? Because you're hungry. It will be absurd for you to not be hungry and you're eating. People are going to ask you what's going on with you. But when you say, oh, I'm hungry, and they serve you the food, you eat the food. What's the aim of ingesting the food? To what? To satiate your hunger. After you satiate your hunger, in the process, what happens? Your body draws nutrients. We need nutrients. When we're talking about nutrients, what are we talking about? We are talking about examples of the classes of food. So let me take you down the memory lane. Who can tell us the classes of food? Can anybody tell us the classes of food that we have? Classes of food. These are things you would have been taught from primary school. Your classes of food. Anyone? What are the classes of food that we have? Yes, go on about me. About me, your voice is breaking. Your voice is breaking. Can you drop it in the chat box?
Water.
Okay, I think I had mineral water. Okay. Okay, Obaumi's voice is breaking, but I'm sure I had minerals. I had water. When we're talking about the classes of food, we are talking about the likes of carbohydrates, protein, vitamin, fat and oil, minerals, water. And we get all of these things from the food we eat. That is why it is advised. They'll tell you, eat balanced diet. What is balanced diet? A balanced diet is a meal that contains the 6 classes of food in the right proportion. So you are not eating a lot of carbohydrate and leaving the others. As you are eating carbohydrates, you're also integrating protein into your diet, integrating vitamins, minerals, and of course you drink water. That is why I feel sorry for people who substitute their water with carbonated drinks whenever they are eating. You should not substitute the water for carbonated drinks. I'm not asking you not to take carbonated drinks, it's your choice. Feel free to take carbonated drinks. However, don't use it as water when you're eating. Get water and eat. As you are eating, you get your water, and when you finish eating, you drink water. Don't substitute water for the place of carbonated drinks or even juice. You might prepare juice by yourself, not the juice that you buy in the market that has preservatives. Some people have a juice extractor. They get their fruits, they extract the juice, and instead of drinking water when they finish eating their food, they take the juice instead. I don't advise that. There's a place for taking juice, and there's a place for water. So when we talk about the digestive system, what are we talking about? You're welcome, Matilda. We talk about the digestive system. We are talking about a combination of organs that are involved in the process of digestion. I defined digestion earlier as a process by which food is converted into substances that can be utilized by our body. So digestive system is made up of organs that are involved in the process of digestion. I liken the digestive system as a grinding machine. A grinding machine that they use in grinding pepper, or even the blender you use in blending your stuffs at home. That is what I liken the digestive system with. So talking about the digestive system, some people call the digestive system the alimentary canal. Give me a moment, let me share my screen as we talk about the digestive system in human beings. Okay. If you can see my screen, drop an emoji. Drop an emoji if you can see my. Okay, thank you, Christine. Thank you, Matilda. So the two of you can see my screen. Okay, so first we'll be talking about the human digestive system. The human digestive system is made up of we can also call it the gastrointestinal tract. But before we go on there, let me take you through the phases of digestion. Digestion involves different phases. Ingestion, where you take the food in, you chew it, you swallow it, and the food moves. We have mechanical digestion and chemical digestion. Mechanical digestion starts from your mouth, where with your teeth, you're chewing, grinding, and breaking down the food into smaller pieces. And then the food goes into your stomach, where chemical digestion will take place. Amylase will act on it. The gastric juice will act on it. Then there is the stage of absorption, which occurs majorly in the area of the small intestine. It is where absorption of nutrients takes place. Then we have elimination, where the waste is passed to the large intestine and it becomes fecal matter for it to be eliminated out. It's stored temporarily in the rectum and then later eliminated as feces, as fecal matter. So the gastrointestinal tract, also that we can also call the digestive system. In animals, we can call it the alimentary canal. The gastrointestinal tract, for short, you can call it the GIT. It has the following structures. It's made up of the mouth, the pharynx, the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, the rectum, and then the anus. Talking about the mouth is the first opening of the GIT through which food is ingested. You open your mouth and you put the food in your mouth, and what happens? With your teeth, the teeth mechanically break down the food into small pieces and through the process of mastication. And with your tongue rolls the food and the food is mixing with the saliva. The saliva contains an enzyme, the salivary amylase. This salivary amylase begins the digestion of carbohydrates. Now, when the food is masticated, the tongue will now turn and roll up the food, and you swallow it. The food becomes something called a bolus, and you swallow it. Now, in the process of swallowing, it moves through the pharynx. The pharynx has two parts, the oropharynx and the nasopharynx. Oropharynx, oro from the word oral, and nasopharynx from the word nasal. Now, the part that is concerned with digestion is the oropharynx, the oral pharynx. That is the part that is concerned with digestion. The nasopharynx is the part that is concerned with breathing, breathing in and out of air. Now, the epiglottis, before we continue, before we go on with the pharynx, we have a structure called the epiglottis. Now, the epiglottis is just it's just like a flap, a little flap that is at the back of your throat. That when you want to swallow food, it covers your trachea, your windpipe. The trachea, a layman calls the trachea the windpipe. Because when you want to ingest food, it's that flap, the epiglottis, covers your trachea, the windpipe, so that food does not enter into your windpipe, the trachea. And when you want to breathe in air, what happens? The epiglottis covers your esophagus. That is why they say don't talk while eating. Why? Because when you are talking, with every speech, you are letting out air. You are breathing in and out as you're speaking. So if you are chewing, you're chewing food and you're talking in between, you're confusing the epiglottis. That's what I tell people. You are confusing your epiglottis. Choose one. Do you want to talk? If you want to talk, let your epiglottis cover your esophagus. Do you want to chew your food and swallow it? Choose that one. Let your epiglottis cover your trachea. But you are trying to do the two at the same time. That is why you find people coughing when they are eating. You find them coughing when they are eating. Why? Because in the process of eating while talking, their epiglottis is just moving left and right and doesn't know which one to do. And before you know it, you find them coughing. Now, that coughing mechanism is a way of our body, is a way that our body uses to protect itself, so that food ingested will not mistakenly enter into the trachea and travel down into the lungs. Then talking about the pharynx is a short muscular tube that connects the mouth to the esophagus, and food from the mouth gets directly into the esophagus through the pharynx. Now, this pharynx has a muscular wall, and the muscular wall helps to project food down into the esophagus through contractions, muscular contractions called peristalsis or peristaltic contractions. Then we have the esophagus. The esophagus is a long, narrow, muscular, straight tube. It is straight. It is not coiled. And the function of the esophagus is to pass food into the stomach. It secretes mucus. It moves through from the throat to the stomach using muscle movement called peristalsis. You know, I mentioned that earlier. You can call it peristaltic movement, peristaltic contraction, or peristalsis. Now, the esophagus can get affected, for example, by when there is reflux of stomach content into the esophagus, and it can cause esophageal ulcer. And esophageal ulcer is caused when acid, or should I say stomach content, is regurgitating out and moving into the esophagus. It can cause heartburn. That is why you find some people, after they just finish vomiting, they will tell you that, oh, their chest is peppering them. Why? You know, they just vomited. The stomach content has come up into the esophagus and out through the mouth. You hear them say, oh, their chest is peppering them. They are having heartburn. Why? Because of the stomach content. Stomach content is quite acidic because there is acid in our stomach. And the acid in our stomach is hydrochloric acid. From your chemistry, I believe you know hydrochloric acid. If you are following, give me thumbs up. Give me thumbs up if you are following. Send a thumbs up if you are following. Thank you, Lucas. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Abawumi. Now, you hear people tell you they are having chest burn, they are having heartburn. And you hear the doctor say, oh, they'll give them antacids. What's causing this heartburn? What's causing it is because when stomach content escape and regurgitate back into the esophagus. The stomach is quite acidic. It contains a very strong acid called hydrochloric acid. And from your chemistry, you know that hydrochloric acid is skunk. If you put a metal spoon inside HCl, hydrochloric acid, it will melt it. That is what is happening in your stomach. That is why you hear people say they have heartburn or chest burn when they just finish vomiting. Also, for people that has esophageal ulcer, which is as a result of stomach content escaping and regurgitating back into the esophagus. Now, the esophagus does not partake in the process of digestion. No form of digestion takes place there. The only function is to just move food from your mouth, from your pharynx into your stomach. That is the only function that the esophagus performs. Then we have the stomach. The stomach is a sac-like structure, more like a bag, that stores food. It is highly muscular in nature, and it stores the food that you ingest. It breaks it down into tiny pieces, and this food also mixed with digestive juice. These digestive juices, they contain enzymes that helps to break down, that helps to continue the further breakdown of carbohydrates, breakdown of protein, and breakdown of fat and oil, lipids that we ingest. Now, if in the process of ingesting your food, some microorganisms have entered into your system, on getting to the stomach, now the hydrochloric acids in the stomach will destroy those microorganisms that you've ingested through your food. It destroys it. That is why when I hear people say, oh, when you take cold, you can't take cold water. If you take cold water, this and this happen, that and that happen. If you take hot water, this and this happen, that and that happen. I'm telling you now today that either you take hot water or you take cold water. By the time the thing enters into your stomach, your body will have regulated the temperature. And the hot water is no longer hot when it gets to your stomach. And the cold water is no longer cold when it gets to your stomach. So either you want to do hot water or cold water, just do the one that works for you. Don't listen to whatever myths people are talking about. Now, within the contraction of the stomach, of the muscles of the stomach, results in the formation of a paste-like form, a paste-like substance called chyme. This chyme is then passed into the small intestine for further digestion. Now let's move to the small intestine. The small intestine is quite long. Now we have intestine, and there are two types of intestine, the small intestine and the large intestine. The small intestine is the longest part of the digestive system. It's the longest part of the GIT and is roughly about 7 meters long. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the digestion and absorption of nutrients takes into the bloodstream takes place in the small intestine. So once your small intestine absorbs the nutrients, it passes the rest to the large intestine. Now, the wall of the small intestine has finger-like projections that are called villi, and this villi help to increase surface area for digestion. It also it also has microvilli that increases surface area also for absorption of nutrients that are contained in the food. This is how the inside of your small intestine looks like. Now, the nutrient that you've ingested from the food passes into the bloodstream through the small intestine. If you eat a food that is rich in carbohydrate and protein, now the carbohydrate and protein is absorbed and goes through your intestine. Now talking about the large intestine, it is short, however, it is wider. This is okay. This pink image here in the middle here shows the small intestine. It is longer than the large intestine. And here, this brown one represents the large intestine. Here we have the appendix, we have the cecum, we have the ascending colon, we have the transverse colon, we have the descending colon, sigmoid colon, the rectum, and the anus is not shown here. Okay, this is where we have the anus. So this is the large intestine. This is the large intestine here. The large intestine is responsible for absorption of water from undigested food, and it turns it into solid feces. I mentioned it earlier that the large intestine is where water is being absorbed. The water will be absorbed from the remaining content that has been passed from the large small intestine to the large intestine. And once the body absorbs water from it, the rest goes on and become fecal matter, continue its journey and goes to the sigmoid colon, the rectum, and then being expelled out. That is why doctors always tell us, whenever you feel like defecating, go and use the toilet, go and use the restroom. Why? The longer it stays in your large intestine, the more water your large intestine will continue extracting from it. And once it continues extracting it, it will make it harder to pass out the feces. So whenever you feel pressed and you need to use the restroom, you need to defecate, go and do your business immediately. Don't wait. Don't say, oh, let me hold on, I'm busy right now. The longer it stays in your large intestine, the more water your large intestine absorbs from the fecal matter. And the more water it absorbs, the more difficult it is for you to expel it. That is why you find people in the toilet. They go to the toilet, you hear them groaning. When they come out, you see their eyes red because they've labored so much they've labored so much in the toilet. So whenever you feel pressed, endeavor to use the restroom and help yourself. Now, the functions of the large intestine, we have it helps to break the bacterial digestion, it absorbs more water, and it concentrates waste. Now, there are conditions that affect the digestive system. I mentioned esophageal ulcer earlier. We also have a condition that is called peptic ulcer disease, PUD. You hear people say, they have ulcer, they have ulcer, they have this, they have that. It can be gastric ulcer that affects the stomach. It could be esophageal ulcer that affects the esophagus. It could be duodenal ulcer that affects the duodenum. Oh, that reminds me. I apologize. There are three parts of the small intestine: the ileum, the jejunum, and the duodenum. The first part here is the duodenum, followed by the jejunum, then the last part is the ileum. Now, the ileum of the small intestine connects with the large intestine through the cecum at a place called the ileocecal junction. If you take a look at the screen, you see that this pinkish part is connected to this white part, the first part of the large intestine. So we also have duodenal ulcers, we have constipation, we have diarrhea. I believe you must have heard about the word constipation and diarrhea, one way or the other. If you are following me, drop an emoji if you are following. I want to be sure everyone is going along with me and somebody is not lost in the middle. Drop an emoji if you are following. And if you have questions in the process of the explanation, please note down your question or drop it in the chat box. At the end of the class, I'm going to open the floor for you to ask questions. I will ask you to unmute your mics and ask your questions. And I can take questions also from the chat box if you drop your questions there. Now, talking about the constipation. Now, constipation occurs when fecal matter stays longer than usual in the large intestine, in the colon. So it makes it difficult to pass out. At most times, doctors end up prescribing laxatives. That's for constipation. For diarrhea occurs when food ingested rushes through the digestive tract. When it rushes through, that is why when somebody is having diarrhea, they pass out watery stool, because the food ingested didn't take enough time in the digestive tract for it to become solidified and water absorbed from it. Part of the large intestine that we also have the vermiform appendix. I'm zooming in for you to be able to see the labeling. We have the vermiform appendix. I don't know if you've heard about the word appendicitis before. Why they say, oh, somebody has appendicitis. Now, the appendix is a vestigial organ that is found just below the cecum of the large intestine. Now, you know, I mentioned that the large intestine is divided into some parts. I said the first part is the cecum, which is the connection with the from this is the appendix, this is the cecum. Then we have the ascending colon, the transverse colon, here the descending colon, here we have the sigmoid rectum, and we have the anal canal. Now, what's the function of the appendix? People, the appendix performs no function in digestion, which is true. It doesn't perform any function in digestion. It plays no role in digestion. However, research also says that because it has lymphoid organs, these lymphoid organs are involved in immunity, protection of our body, defense against foreign organisms. So some research argues that the appendix performs that function. That is why the appendix can get inflamed, and the person can get, the individual will get a condition called appendicitis. And when the individual gets the condition called appendicitis, they are going to need to perform a surgery called appendectomy, also called appendectomy, which is the surgical removal of the body, either laparoscopy or through laparotomy, open laparotomy, and they excise the appendix. Okay, so let's talk about the rectum. Let's talk about the rectum. The rectum that is attached to the descending colon. And what function does it perform? It performs the function by acting as a temporary storage for feces, where fecal matter stays until it is ingested, until it is excreted. Then we have the anus, which is the last opening of the GIT, digested from the body. We also have some accessory organs of digestion. We have talked about the main organs of digestion: the mouth, the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, the rectum, and the anus. Let's talk about the accessory organs of digestion. The accessory organs of digestion that we have the liver, we have the gallbladder, and we have the pancreas. This greenish one that looks like a branch with a stalk is the gallbladder. Then this yellowish one that looks like a leaf is the pancreas. And this is the liver. This one painted purple is the liver. Now, what functions does the liver perform? The liver directly affects digestion by producing a substance called bile. And what is the function of this bile that the liver is secreting? The bile helps to digest fat. I don't know if you've heard about emulsification of fat. The bile produced by the liver emulsifies fat. That is, it digests fat. And the liver itself performs the function of filtering out toxins and waste that could be gotten from drugs and alcohol. Then we have the gallbladder, this greenish stalk here. We have the gallbladder. What's the function of the gallbladder? You know, I mentioned that the liver produces bile that functions in digestion of fat. Now, when the liver produces the bile, the gallbladder stores the bile. The gallbladder stores the bile, and when the body needs it, it releases it into the intestine, specifically the small intestine, where digestion of fat to take place, emulsification of fat to take place. Then we have the pancreas. What is the function of the pancreas? The pancreas has two functions. It has digestive function and non-digestive function. The digestive function of the pancreas is it produces enzymes that digest carbohydrates and proteins and even fat. And the non-digestive function that the pancreas performs, it regulates the blood sugar level by releasing hormones like insulin and glucagon. Don't let's go too far. It's not for your level. It's not for your level. So this insulin and glucagon, they help in regulating the blood sugar level. And some of the diseases that affect the accessory digestive organ, we have liver disease like liver cirrhosis, hepatitis. For the gallbladder, disease that affect the gallbladder, we have gallstones, which is called cholelithiasis. Then we have cholecystitis, which is inflammation of the gallbladder. And we have cholecystectomy, which is removal of the gallbladder. And disease that affect the pancreas, we have diabetes. Diabetes is when you have high level of glucose in your blood, high sugar level. When you hear blood sugar, it's the same thing as blood glucose. So either you say you want your blood sugar level or you say your blood glucose level, it means the same thing. Okay? If you are following, drop me an. Okay? So talking about the digestive system in animals, that is that when we're talking about the digestive system in animals there are two types of animals when it comes to the basis of their digestion, their digestive system. We have monogastric animal and we have the polygastric animal, also called the ruminant animal. So the monogastric animal, you can call them non-ruminant. The monogastric animals, they have a single stomach, while the ruminant animals, they have a more complex digestive tract. They have more than one stomach compartment. Example of the ruminant or polygastric animals, we have cattle. Example of monogastric animal or non-ruminant animals, we have swine. What is swine? Who can tell me what swine is? Which animal do we call swine? Does anybody know that? Who wants to answer that question? Which animal do we call swine? No, not duck. Not duck. Lucas, it's not duck. Which animal do we call swine?
Pig.
Yes, thank you. Pig. It is pig that is called a swine. Can you see how your knowledge can be tested from any area? Imagine if this was an exam question, maybe in your JAMB or in your WAEC, and they say an example of a monogastric animal. They put cow. Okay, they put cattle, elephants, lion, swine. Instead of putting pig, they put swine. Somebody will be asking, okay, we know cattle are this, we know lion, okay, what about which one is swine? You'll be asking yourself which one is swine. Abi, swines are pigs. Swine, you can call them, they are also called, pigs are also called swine. We're talking about the monogastric. This is an example, this is the layout of the digestive system of a monogastric animal. From the tongue to the salivary gland, the esophagus, the stomach, the food moves to the duodenum, the jejunum, ileum, which is the small intestine, it moves to the large intestine. So when we are talking about the alimentary canal in animals, I said the digestive system in animals, we can call them alimentary canal. I mentioned that. I said you can call them the alimentary canal. But for human beings, it's either you use digestive system or you use. Now, the tongue and salivary glands of monogastric animal. The tongue is the first step, just like in human beings that generate saliva. The salivary gland generates saliva, and the tongue helps to push the food towards the esophagus. and on pushing food towards the esophagus. Just like in human beings, the saliva in monogastric animals also contains an enzyme that also helps in the breakdown of starch. It also helps in the breakdown of starch. That is, it begins the process of digestion of carbohydrate also. Then we have the esophagus. Like in human beings, is a tube that carries food from the mouth to the stomach. From the mouth to the stomach. At the end of the esophagus, we have the cardiac valve, which is a sphincter, a muscular constriction. A muscular constriction is like a rubber band now. It's like maybe you open the pack of Maggi, and instead of just leaving it open, you take rubber band and you tie it so that air does not go inside it, ant does not enter, anything does not enter. That is how that cardiac valve is. That is how it works. It helps to prevent food in the stomach from passing back into the esophagus. So this is the esophagus of a monogastric animal. Then we have the stomach. You know, the monogastric animal has just one stomach compartment. The stomach is where the chemicals, digestive enzymes are added to the food, and the cells of the stomach also secrete hydrochloric acid and some enzymes, which helps to break down the food into small particles. It helps to break down the food that the animal have ingested. Now, at the end, the food now passes into the small intestine through the pyloric valve. Now, the monogastric animal also has a gallbladder, they have a liver, a pancreas, and duodenum. And their function is just like that of the functions of the gallbladder, liver, pancreas, and duodenum in human beings. The gallbladder in monogastric animals serves as a storage compartment for bile. I mentioned that earlier when we were talking about the the gallbladder in human beings. And the bile is secreted by the liver, and this bile functions in digestion of fat. Then the pancreas, it secretes pancreatic juice that aids in digestion of carbohydrates, proteins, and fat. That is the digestive function of the pancreas. The non-digestive function is the one where I mentioned that they secrete insulin and glucagon to regulate the blood sugar level, the blood glucose level. Now, all of these secretions are added to the duodenum, which I said is the first part of the small intestine. You know, I mentioned earlier that the small intestine is divided into three parts. The first part is the duodenum, the second part is the jejunum, and the third part is the ileum. It is that ileum that connects at the ileocecal junction with the cecum of the large intestine. So it is through the ileum that food substances are passed from the small intestine into the large intestine. So the small intestine assists in the absorption of nutrients, just like in human beings. Absorption of nutrients occurs in the small intestine, and it contains three parts, like I mentioned: duodenum, which is the middle part, ileum, the final part, and the duodenum, which is the first part. Now, between the ileum and the large intestine is a blind gut called the cecum, and it aids in digestion of fibrous materials. For the large intestine, just like in human beings, the large intestine's main function is absorption of water. It absorbs water. The large intestine absorbs water from whatever substance, food particles has been passed into it. And mucus is added into it to make the passage of the fecal matter easier. The muscle contraction puts the food throughout the intestine. We have the rectum and the anus. Just like in human beings, the rectum is the final portion of the large intestine, and it helps to form solid waste, and the anus is the final part of the digestive tract. And what's the function of the anus? It excretes undigested food from the body. All right, so that is that about the animals. That's not about the animals. If you are following, please send an emoji. Let me see how many people have been able to follow us up to this point. Send an emoji. you are still in class. Okay. If you are following, kindly drop an emoji. Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So before we go on, I'd like to take the attendance. So please unmute your mics. I said we, Obawumi, Lucas, Christine, please unmute your mic. I want to take the attendance. I believe by now, whoever is going to join the class should have joined by now. So you can unmute your mic so you can answer. If you can answer to your name when I call your name. Okay, give me a moment. Oh, okay. Okay, Christine, your name is the first one, so you're present. Christine
Yes,
is
ma'am.
present. Okay, is there a Joshua and Ogena in class?
Everybody close their mic.
Is there a Joshua in class? Okay, I suppose absent. Do we have okay God's time in class? Is okay God's time in class? What? Okay, I suppose okay God's time is absent. Is Sharon in class? Okay, Sharon is absent. Is Osazuwa Elogoza in class? Osazuwa, are you in class? Okay, I suppose you're absent. Utsman Jessica, are you in class? Utsman Jessica, are you in class? Okay, absent. Dubem Emma, are you in class? Okay, no. Imoetinyo Praise, are you in class? Imoetinyo Praise. Okay, absent. Odalo Golden, is Golden in class today? Okay, absent. Ayuba David, are you in class today? Okay, Ayuba David is absent. Okay, Obawumi, I can see your name. Obawumi is present. Thank you for coming. Rejoice Michael, are you in class? I suppose Rejoice Michael is absent. Ayuba David, are you in class? Gospel Itoya, are you in class? Gospel Itoya, is Gospel Itoya in class? Okay, absent. Is Siri in class? Siri, are you in class? Okay, absent. Onaiwu Osazi, are you in class?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for coming. Is Success in class? Is Success in class? Okay, absent. Is Precious in class? Anyone named Precious in class?
In class.
Okay, absent.
Okay, absent.
Efe.
Efe.
Is Efe in
Is Efe
class?
in class?
Okay, I suppose
Okay,
Efe
I
is
suppose
also
Efe
absent.
also absent.
Okay, if you are in
Okay,
class and
if
you
you
didn't
are in
hear your
class,
name,
I
if
think
you didn't hear me mention
yeah.
the attendance, can you drop
No,
an
your voice
emoji?
is
You didn't hear
echoing.
your name in the attendance, drop an emoji. You did not hear your name in the attendance, drop an emoji. I think I noticed that on my part. Okay, okay. About me, I called your name. Oh, I've marked you present. I called your name. Okay. Losa. Losa. Okay. If you didn't hear your name, please reach out to the admin. Please reach out to the admin if you didn't hear your name. I have 24 names on the list. So if your name is not part of it, kindly reach out to the admin, okay? Please reach out to the admin. All right, at this point, I'm going to ask if anybody has any question. Anyone? Anyone? Anyone before we go on with the class? Any questions? If you have questions and you don't want to mention it, you can drop it in the chat box. Okay, I'm waiting. Does anybody have any question? You want to say your question out, or you want to drop your question in the chat box? Okay, I suppose there is no question. All right, so I'm going to share my screen to display a question. Unmute your mic. The class is about to get interactive. Unmute your mics. Unmute your mics. Please unmute your mic. Obaumi, unmute your mic. Melody, unmute your mic. I want to ask you some questions based on the last thing we talked about, digestive system in animals. All right, so looking at the question on the screen. Pigs are monogastric animals, which means they only have a single chambered stomach. So true or false?
True.
True. Anyone?
True.
Okay, thank you for that. The second question. The jejunum and ileum are a part of the large intestine. True or false?
False. True. False.
I'm waiting. True or false?
False.
Anyone? You can drop your answers in the chat box.
False.
The jejunum and ileum are a part of the large intestine. True or false?
False.
Okay, thank you. Why? Why is it false? Because the jejunum and ileum are a part of the small intestine and not the large intestine. Okay, that's correct. Okay. The straight tube has formed solid waste and prepared waste for excretion is called what? Anyone? I'm waiting. Anyone?
The rectum.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next question. At question 4, at the end of the esophagus is the dash that helps prevent food from re-entry into the esophagus. It means there is something at the end of the esophagus that helps to prevent food from the stomach from entering back in, from going back into the esophagus. So what's the name of that structure? The cardiac valve, pyloric valve, cecum, or ileum?
Cardiac valve.
All right, thank you for that. Question 5. The main function of the liver is to dash. What is the function of the liver? Is to secrete dash. The main function of the liver is to secrete dash. To secrete saliva, juice, water, bile.
Bile.
Valve.
Okay, thank you. Bile, thank you. All right, that is all. All right, thank you for coming along throughout the class. So I'm going to ask again. Does anybody have any question before we bring the class to an end? If you have any question, you can drop it in the chat box also. Anyone? Okay, I'm supposing that the silence means that no, you do not have any questions. Okay, you didn't have questions for me the first time. I asked you questions and you were able to answer. So I guess that shows that you were following, at least from a distance, from a good point, sorry. All right, so let's do a general recap. Who can tell us the parts of the digestive system in both human beings and monogastric animals? What are the parts of the digestive system? Anyone?
Also, I want to try.
Okay, give it a trial.
Pancreas, esophagus, and duodenum.
Pancreas, esophagus, duodenum. And the duodenum is the first part of the small intestine. Okay, thank you. But if I ask you to list it accordingly, if you are asked to list it accordingly, who can give it a trial? Starting from the mouth. If you are asked to list the digestive
Okay.
system, starting from the
Mm,
mouth, who can give it a trial?
the mouth, esophagus,
Yes,
the stomach,
yes,
and
yes.
small intestine and large intestine.
Okay, then we have the rectum and the anus. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lucas. Thank you so much. That's quite commendable. That's quite commendable. How many, who can mention the parts of the large intestine? The parts of the large intestine. Who can mention the parts of the large intestine? Who can mention the part of the large intestine? Anyone wants to give it a trial?
Oh, see some are be identical.
Cecum is pronounced
Okay,
cecum.
cecum. Okay, cecum, colon,
In
rectum,
biology,
and
you just have to
anal
get the
canal.
spelling right. Once your spelling is right, you can pronounce it
Cecum.
whichever way you fit. I just want to get the spelling. So it's cecum. Yes, cecum. Yes. So what are the other parts of the large intestine aside the cecum?
The colon,
Yes, colon. And the colon is
red,
divided into what? It's divided into
uh,
how many parts?
into 4.
Okay. Can you mention them? Can you mention those four?
Ascending, transverse, descending, and the sigmoid, or don't know the
Oh,
sigmoid.
yes, the sigmoid. That's correct. Okay. Thank you for that. So who can tell us the three parts of the small intestine? The three parts of the small intestine. Who can tell us about it? The three parts of the small intestine. Does
Yeah,
anybody
good
want to tell
evening.
us about it?
And
Yes, duodenum?
Elum,
Okay. Can you mention it accordingly? Can you mention it accordingly?
duodenum, jejunum, and ileum.
Yes, you're correct. Duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Thank you so much. Let me give you a round of applause. I'm giving you a round of applause. To those of you that answered the question, I'm giving you a round of applause. Thank you so much for joining the class this evening. So our next class is on Saturday, same time, 7 p.m. Let's endeavor to come early. And if in the course of your reading, in the course of listening to the recorded session online, if you have any question, please note it down. On Saturday in our next class, we'll talk about it. Okay, so you might not have questions today, but in the course of your reading, you might have questions. Note it down somewhere. And when we come for our next class, you will tackle it. Okay, if you are and it will be attended to. Okay. All right. So bye everyone. Bye Lucas. Bye Melody. Bye Christine. Bye Obawumi. Bye Esewi. I'll see you on Saturday. Have a good evening. Bye.